Welcome back, everyone. We're Simply Bitcoin. We break down the news, the daily fail, meme review, software releases, hardware releases, and the Plebsites. Man, I am glad to be back. Nico, you know where we're going. It's number time. Let's do it.
Number time! Brought to you by Nodl. They make some of the best Bitcoin nodes, like the Nodl One, run your own version of Bitcoin Core, the Lightning Network, Whirlpool, and Dojo, all from the comfort of your own home. And now, if you're a digital nomad, you have no excuse because you could run Nodl Cloud. Nodl Cloud is the Nodl through a virtual private server, all the benefits of a node, but you don't have to be anywhere. It's awesome. Visit nodl.eu.
At the time of this recording, the block height is 744,605. The Bitcoin price, 20,525. Chain rewrite days, 827. Total public Lightning capacity, 4,211.60. Moscow time, 4872. Blocks to the halvening, 95,395. And the Samurai Whirlpool. Unspent capacity. Samurai Whirlpool is a CoinJoiner collaborative spend. It's not a mixing service. And the unspent capacity from that pool is 4,881.25. Nico, the very uneventful numbers.
Uneventful. And I'm back. You're back. Bitcoin is the new stablecoin at 20K.
Why would you say that?
I know. Am I going to break it? Did I just jinx it? I don't know. We shall see. But so today we're going to react to some comments, right? And we've been getting some very colorful comments because the price of Bitcoin is down. So we have a comment from Avak. I'll pop it up for you guys on screen. You guys know the deal. And Avak says, how to explain that you're economically illiterate in 30s. First of all, that's a compliment, Phil, because you're in your 40s, my friend.
So wait, I'm economically incompetent in my 40s.
Yeah.
Did we just outdo him?
He just said how to explain that you're economically illiterate in your 30s. Sorry. And he was responding to a short. And the short was, Bitcoin holds value better than the dollar.
I guess he never actually took a look at that chart with the U.S. dollar losing 99% of its purchasing power. That that person, and again, don't get me wrong, in a traditional banking system, right? It looks, we look like idiots, right? It looks like it makes no sense because when you don't actually understand the proposition of Bitcoin, and you look at the dollar and you think, well, wait a second, my dollar's not losing purchasing power. But in all honesty, if you go take a look at the US dollar, you'll see it's lost 99-point-something%. If you go take a look at the euro has lost over 97% purchasing power. So
I'm actually looking at right here. I'll pop up an image for you guys when we look at it, right? And the consumer goods, which I think is the most useful, right? If you zoom out, because he's absolutely right on a year basis. Right, a medium new house. What's something that you buy? Let's say a house, right? So a house, and priced in U.S. dollars versus Bitcoin, houses are 73% more expensive if you look at it on a year basis. However, if you look on it on a 3-year basis, houses are actually, even with 100% up in the last 2 years, houses, if you were saving in Bitcoin, are actually 21% cheaper. If you were saving in Bitcoin on a 5-year basis, houses are actually 84% cheaper. So, Avak, you know what? When you commented this, I think I was in my 20s. I'm in my 30s now. In fact, I've been wealthier in my 20s than I have been in my 30s. I texted you that day. Remember the other day, Phil?
Yes. But okay, so I do want to add one other thing, though. Okay,
it's because I just turned 30, guys. Just a little, explanation.
If you cherry pick your timelines, okay, to fit your narrative, you'll never have to learn anything else, okay? Because you will always find biased information to make it seem like what you think makes sense. And we know the feeling in Bitcoin. But believe me, I've said this 1,000 times. I used to wake up every single day and I was like, hey, this thing has to be garbage. It has to be a scam. I need to figure this out. And every single day I would try to figure it out. I would try to find the angle. And every day I could not find the angle and I would just go and stack more corn. I'm like, all right, can't figure this out. I'm just going to buy more Bitcoin because this right now is what makes the most sense.
Yeah.
So look, cherry picking those timelines, you're not helping yourself. I know you think you're helping yourself because you feel better on the moment, but when you zoom out, you're going to be wrecked, bud, because you're not understanding what's happening to the dollar.
Absolutely. Now, moving on to the next one, Phil. This one's
I forgot there was another one.
This one's a little bit more complicated. It's by Wayne Last. And he said, and this was a reference to the short, I think you actually put this the other day, Why Governments Can't Be Trusted to Print Money. That was the title of the short. And Wayne Last said, the rich have the ability to generate more wealth, which is subtly taken from the middle and poorer classes. And then he goes on to say, well, Thomas Flores says, don't blame the rich for the work of Washington. Very good answer. And then Wayne Last continues, he says, I'm 100% right. I'd never say I'm 100% right. If I'm sure about something, I say 99, because there's always that doubt, right? So
humility,
right? People with money use it to extract wealth from each other. The entire economy is structured this way, which is why the rich get richer and more divided we become. Okay, so the first part of that is ideological in the way that you're looking economics. So I'm not going to bother going back to that, because some people say, you use money to create wealth, right? That's what it's all about. Money isn't taken, right? It's created when you produce something. But I understand that certain people with certain ideological beliefs might disagree. So I'm gonna stick to the money argument, which he says, the economy is structured this way, which is why the rich get richer and more divided we become. I'm gonna leave the economic thing aside, but the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Maybe if you're talking about the economy, but let's focus on the money, right? What happens when the government prints money, when the government prints fiat, right? Something is a wealth redistribution, right? It's not rich people taking your money when the government prints money, right? The government, every time, and they describe this, they call it inflation, right? When they print more money, they add more money to the money supply. If you're poor or if you're middle class and you don't have the means to save in equities, commodities, or real estate that don't benefit from asset inflation, most people in the lower income and the middle income, they save in cash. And if you save in cash and you don't have your money in assets, you don't benefit from the money printer. In fact, every time they print money, the government is stealing from you, and they're giving to the very wealthy, and they're giving to themselves, right? So to go back to the original comment, it's actually a good thing if we separate the money away from government, because you take away the government's ability to do that to you. On top of that, I know that you're concerned about the wealthy. The awesome part about Bitcoin is that you take away the wealthy's ability to debase your money. You take away anybody's ability to debase your money or to steal from you, right? Because at the end of the day, and shitcoins do this too, as long as someone has the power to print more money that you hold, every time they print more money or they create more money, it devalues what you're holding, right? So if you put the economic argument aside, I'm not going to get into that, right? And you just focus on the money, right? Fixing the money, as was the original title of that video, fixes the crux of the issue, because you're taking away someone else's ability to steal from you by debasing currency. So I hope that by debasing the currency you're holding, better said. So I hope that answers your question. Wayne Last. Anyways, Phil, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think you did a great job with that response. So look, when I was like 16, when I was in my teens, I was absolutely certain that it was the rich and the powerful corporations that were robbing the middle class and the poor. I was absolutely certain that if Walmart didn't exist, every other business would flourish. Okay, but that was before I understood incentives. That was before I understood the debasement, which is the correct word to use. Okay, the debasement that the government does through the Federal Reserve and through the Treasury and the circus of money creation, okay, that's really the crux of the matter. So you see, by creating the situation where we as individuals decide to blame the rich and the corporations, what's happening is that the government and the private entities that produce money, they get a free pass. They get to just sit in the background, keep debasing, and guess what? We're blaming the rich, we're blaming corporations, but at the end of the day, it's nothing but incentives. That's all it is. It's every single human, and Nico, you always, like, it's like, I'll always sit there and be like, no, they're evil, and you're like, there's nobody's just sitting there twirling their mustache. And you know what? In this case, yes, you actually have a mustache. You can do it. But like, in this case, they're really not. They are literally acting on their incentives. Now, the other piece that I want to bring into this has to do with education, okay? Something I learned growing up was that the wealthier friends that I had a better understanding of how to create money in terms of employment or a business, number one, and number two, how to use money, right? In terms of, hey, if you can get this money to work for you, you can spend your time doing something else. And this is something that unfortunately the poor don't either are not taught this, or maybe they are and they just don't, they're not explained the significance of it, or maybe just on an individual level, they just don't care. So again, I don't want to, give a blanket statement as to why that's happening, but I'm just saying is that it truly is a matter of knowledge in this case. And you have to understand the playing field that we're on, right? We have to understand the game board that we're on in order to play the game effectively. And once we understand that the government debases our money through the mechanisms of the Federal Reserve and the Treasury, well, then we understand how to play the game. Bitcoin makes it so that we literally remove the game board out from under that system and we take the money printing capability away from them. So yes, this is why we champion Bitcoin, and we do think that it is going to fix this problem. Sorry that the video offended you.
No, I 100% agree. I think that you really said something really wise, which is, and I've said this many times. I've told this to you, Phil, many times, right? Which is the biggest difference from someone who's very poor and someone who's very wealthy. I've been both back in my teenage years, the very wealthy part. Before I lost everything before my family lost everything due to some domino effects that were started due to the 2008-2009 financial crisis. And one of the things, the differences, right, that I've noticed from very wealthy people, very poor people, right, is the mindset. So I always say this, I'm like, the difference between someone who's poor and someone who's wealth is obviously, what's in their bank account, but the important difference is the way they look at the world, right? There's the poverty mindset, then there's the wealthy mindset. It's real. It's very, very real, and it will affect the way that you look at opportunities, the way that you look at life, right? So yeah, man. I hope Wayne and Arv see this. But anyways, Phil, it's time for
the Daily News.
Brought to you by CryptoCloaks.com. They make some of the best 3D printed Bitcoin merch, like the famous 3D printed Bitcoin grenade toy. Comes in any custom color your heart desires. You want it in orange? Simply Bitcoin orange, you could do that. What about Peter Schiff colors? That's right, they make it in gold. Take a look at the open source 3D node stuff on his website. Take a look at the European store. It's now open. 10% off, 5% off down below, CryptoCloaks.com. All right, everybody, check this out. I'm going to run through this real quick. Then we're going to talk about some more important news. So, Robinhood enables Bitcoin transfers for all users. We called this months ago. They did announce it at the Bitcoin conference, but now they've actually enabled it, right? And at the end of the day, look, check this out, Phil. The firm started testing its Bitcoin withdrawal feature in September 2021. In under 2 months, 1.6 million users were on the wait list to access the functionality. It began rolling out Bitcoin withdrawals in January 2022. So, dude, now it's for all users. Now you don't have to be on a wait list. That's a lot of people taking self-custody. That is ultra bullish. At the end of the day, did Robinhood do this out of the goodness of their heart? No. And we actually predicted that not only Robinhood, but PayPal was going to do this as well. back in the day when we covered an article at the beginnings of Simply Bitcoin, when we were going over Cash App's numbers, right? Cash App was making a lot of money on Bitcoin sales. And if you see what Cash App enables, Cash App enables withdrawals, right? So in order to stay competitive, remember what we were talking about incentives in the beginning, in order to stay competitive, Robinhood and PayPal had to match what Cash App has doing in the hope of attracting some of those customers back to those platforms. So it's good to see this. Now, the more important news, this is a little bit of noise, but I think I wanted to cover it because of, we always like to make here the case, guys, that incentives are very powerful. Anyways, moving on to this, Gloria Zhao becomes first female Bitcoin Core maintainer, and Peter Woolley, I'm sorry if I pronounced that, guys. Phil's going to help me with the pronunciation, steps down.
I can't pronounce his name either.
I'm sorry, guys. Please correct me in the comments. I know he's a veteran Bitcoin dev, and I apologize for not pronouncing his name correctly. Anyways, developer Gloria Zhao has become the first known woman to join the select cohort of Bitcoin Core containers. Bitcoin Core maintainers have commit permissions to the repository and are responsible for merging contributions from other developers onto the codebase. Zhao's addition to the group came on the same day as a longtime maintainer, Pierre, stepped down from the role. Woolley is one of the most well-known developers in the Bitcoin community and has contributed immensely to the Bitcoin ecosystem, particularly to Bitcoin Core. The departure of the developer, who worked on many Bitcoin's important upgrades to date, including BIP 32 seed phrases, SegWit, and Taproot Schnorr, caused some fears in the community. And this is, he responded, he clarified some things on Twitter. To be clear, I won't stop contributing to code, review, and all the projects I'm involved in. So it looks like he just doesn't want the permissions anymore, but he's still going to be active on Bitcoin. And if you take a look at the actual GitHub repository, here's someone who's actually thanking him for the work that he's done. Check this out, but it's by ACH. Verified the fingerprint, so it's obviously him. Thank you for being a Bitcoin Core maintainer since 2011. This guy's been here almost since the beginning. I have learned a lot of things reading your posts and will keep learning as you will still be active as a contributor. Really, really cool. Phil, is this a passing of the guard? And another thing that I wanted to bring up, and again, guys, I'm not really a believer in the whole identity stuff. I'm a big believer in the merits of someone. I think someone shouldn't be judged by their sex, skin color, and all that stuff. I think someone should be judged based on their own accomplishments and based on their own personality. The sex and skin color and all that stuff is completely irrelevant, and that's the way it should be. I think it was Martin Luther King that said the famous line, right? Don't judge someone by the color of their skin, but rather on the content of their character, something along those lines. But I still think it's awesome that, it was a girl, the first Bitcoin Core maintainer that's a woman. I think that's awesome. That's historic. And if you take a look at Gloria's credentials, which I think is the actual important part, she's very credentialed. She has the background. I think she deserves it, right? So I think that was really cool. And again, shout out to Peter for maintaining it for so long. I'm sorry that I butchered the pronunciation of your name. I apologize. If I ever see you one day, I will buy you a beer. Phil, what are your thoughts?
I think people pronounce his name Peter Wheel, but I could be wrong.
There
Anyways, I'm trying. That's probably wrong too, and I'm also apologizing because I couldn't pronounce it right to begin with either. But look, okay, before we talk about the maintainer stuff, that Robinhood article, all I was hearing is everybody was excited to get their corn off of their platform. The fact that they had 1.6 million people on that wait list to get all of their corn off of there shows you that is the signal. That is the signal. And the signal is when people are given the proper information and the choice, they will self-custody. So proper information, the tools, and the choice, they will self-custody. And we can see the proof of that, or at least to me, I take that as proof. Okay. For the Bitcoin Core maintenance stuff, I totally agree with you. I mean, look, I'm a Gen Xer. The way that we were raised, or at least the way that I grew up, it was exactly what you said. It was about your merits. It didn't make a difference whether you were male or female, what you identified as. Nobody gave a shit. That only mattered to you. That's important to you, and that's fantastic. Okay. But the point is that it had to do with the quality of your work, your integrity, what you presented, right? What you actually came to the table with. And these are the things that should matter. That being said, unfortunately, we do see comments in the Bitcoin community that there isn't enough involvement by females and for females. And so I think that at the very least, this is a positive development. Maybe it's going to encourage some other ladies to, decide to step up as well. Not that they haven't in any way, shape, or form. I'm not making that assumption. I'm just saying this may encourage others, right? Because usually that's how it works. It's not the masses that just all of a sudden to decide to go and do something. It takes one person, and that one person motivates a second and a third, and it goes on and on. So you know what? Good for us. Awesome for Gloria. And the reality is, Peter's been doing this for a decade. I'm pretty sure he wants a break as well. So everybody wins, we hope.
Everybody wins, we hope. So now that we got the positive news out of the way, all right, I'm going to go back in time to a tweet that I did a while ago. I actually have it pinned because of how important I believe this is, right? You have to know, we always talk about the peaceful revolution, and you automatically, you think revolution, you think bullets, you think war, you think violence, right? No, we say Bitcoin is a peaceful revolution, but what is the revolution? What is this revolution? Revolution is simple. People taking back their financial sovereignty. Full stop. That's it. How do you do that? You take Bitcoin off exchanges and you take it into cold storage. That's it. If enough people do that, we win, right? Really, it's not rocket science. That's it. That is the revolution, right? So why is this such a big deal? Because if you look throughout history, right, whether it's the bank runs of the 1930s or the horrible example that I always give, right, which is back in the 30s, right, when a certain government got in power in Germany, a lot of the Jews that were being persecuted could not leave, because one of the first things that this particular government did when they got into power was freeze the accounts of not only Jews, but of certain ethnic people, right? With Bitcoin, if you take Bitcoin into self-custody, not only do you have the power to vote with your wallet, you also have the power, more important power, to vote with your feet. You could take all of your wealth with you like this, right? And that, I believe, is going to change humanity. So why am I talking about this? Check this out. This was a big piece of news, and we actually covered this earlier, Phil, but this came out recently. July 11th, China crushes mass protests by bank depositors demanding their life savings back. This is an article on CNN. Chinese, and I know CNN has bad reputation, but don't worry. I checked it out on Reuters. I checked it on the Financial Times, and I checked it out on Wall Street Journal. The reason I'm using this one is because it has the most amount of pictures. Anyways, so I could show our video viewers. Chinese authorities on Sunday violently dispersed a peaceful protest by hundreds of depositors who sought in vain to demand their life savings back from banks that have run into a deepening cash crisis. Check this out and connect this what we are talking about with the Celsius, what we are talking about BlockFi. It's the same goddamn problem. You give a bank, you give in exchange your money. They promise you security. They promise you a yield, right? In the back, what are they doing with your money? They're speculating with it. Who's the one that pays the price? You do. What happens when you take Bitcoin into self-custody? No one could speculate on your money, period. Anyways, since April, 4 rural banks in China's central Henan province have frozen millions of dollars worth of deposits, threatening the livelihoods of hundreds of thousands of customers, and in an economy already battered by draconian virus lockdowns. On Sunday, more than 1,000 depositors from across China gathered outside Xinzhou branch of this country's central bank, the People's Bank of China. Not so much the People's Bank of China. It looks like they don't give a shit about the people. To launch their largest protest yet. More than half a dozen protesters told CNN. The demonstration is among the largest China has seen since the pandemic, with domestic travel limited by various virus restrictions on movement. Last month, Xinzhou authorities even restored to tampering with the country's digital virus health code system. Remember, we covered that, Phil, to restrict the movements of depositors thwart their planned protests, sparking a nationwide outcry. Moving on. The face-off lasted for several hours until after 11 a.m. when rows of security officers suddenly charged up the stairs, clashed with protesters who threw bottles and other small objects at them. Keep in mind what this is saying. Zoom out. Security guards are beating the shit out of these protesters because the bank doesn't want to give them their money. Whose money was it really the whole time? Anyways, the scene quickly descended into chaos as security officers dragged protesters down the stairs and beat those who resisted. You want your money? We'll beat the shit out of you, including women and the elderly, according to witness and social media videos. One woman from eastern Shandong province told CNN she pushed to the ground by two security guards who twisted and injured her arm. A 27-year-old man from the southern city of Shenzhen, surnamed Sun, said he was kicked by 7 or 8 guards on the ground before being carried away. A 45-year-old man from the central city of Wuhan said his shirt was completely torn at the back during the scuffle. So imagine, right? Every time you take Bitcoin into self-custody, NVK comes out of the closet and starts beating the shit out of you with a stick. Obviously, that doesn't happen, right? This is the power of self-custody. These types of situations really highlight the power of taking money into your own hands, right? Your country, your bank can't hold you hostage anymore, right? That is extremely powerful. And look, this is history repeating itself. In the United States, during the bank runs of the late 1920s, early 1930s, same thing. Police were called to stop the protesters. But what do the protesters want? Do they want a change of government? Do they want the gas prices? No. All they want is their money back. The money that these banks, these exchanges, speculated on. It's the same concept. Don't let other people hold your money. And if you do, understand that what you're doing is risky. And the governments know this. In the United States, after the 1930s, right? One of the things that FDR did to ensure the public that your money was safe there is that they set up something called the FDIC insurance in the United States. It went from it back when I was growing up, it was $100,000. They moved it up to $250,000. Where's that money that's being insured coming from? The government's just going to print it. So even if the government, right, honors that, right, and I think there's actually an insurance fund as well, right? But we all know that insurance fund isn't enough, right? But let's say they honor that. Where's that money going to come from? They're going to have to print it. Meaning, even if your money is not in that bank, you are still going to pay the consequence for it. Keep your money, put your money, your time, your wealth, your energy into something that can't be debased and that it's very difficult to confiscate. That's my 2 cents here. These types of things, this is just happening in China today. I guarantee you it's going to happen someplace else because the concept, the places might change, but the concept is the same. You're trusting a central entity with your money. You don't have to trust them anymore. You could make the argument that before Bitcoin, you had to trust. Now, you don't. My 2 cents. Phil, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to point out, the whole FDIC insurance thing. I remember when this happened. And they were trying to essentially make everybody, they're trying to calm everybody down, trying to ease everybody's mind, right? It's okay. We got you. We're going to cover $250,000. And of course, you may think to yourself, well, who's going to have more than $250,000 in a single bank account? Don't get me wrong, but there are some people who do. And so technically what that means Okay, let's say, for whatever reason, let's say you had $750,000 in a bank account. The FDIC only insures $250,000. Something goes wrong. You just lost $500,000. Like that $500,000 is not insured. So what does this force the individual to do? So it forces the individual now to have to go open another account. Okay? And then you've got to transfer funds into that account. So now all of a sudden, we're introducing more complexity into the mix. All right? And I want you to think about this. I always bring this up, and I think that I don't know if not enough people just take it seriously, or maybe it's just that I don't say it with enough passion. I need to learn how to do the Nico rants, okay? But essentially, this time that we give, you didn't compartmentalize the time and hand over bits and pieces. The only string attached that we have for our time is that we gave it in exchange for this value that we thought was ours. This value that we thought we got to keep. This value that we thought we got to exchange and move around when we wanted. That's not what we freaking got. Instead, all we got was a bunch of very complex strings attached that made it so that all of a sudden, we now no longer have any control over our money. And this situation that you brought up in China, I know that people sit there and go, well, that's not going to happen here. Let me tell you something. 4 years ago, I didn't think that you could lock down entire countries. And then we saw a good portion of the world get locked down. So for the people who think that these things can't happen, or, oh no, it's okay because I can always keep control. I don't do anything wrong. They're not going to stop me. The banks aren't going to stop me from getting to my money. You can't think like that. We saw what happened with the Canadian truckers. We're seeing what's happening in Sri Lanka. We read what's going on in China. What more do we need to realize that self-sovereignty of our time value, this is the only answer we have. And Bitcoin is the only tool that provides this escape hatch. So, Bitcoin. Oh, you're muted.
100%. Literally, there is no, the examples keep being shown. Now we have a solution. It's time to act. Like, we're at that point, right? Take self-custody. What I said in the beginning, the revolution is self-custody. If enough people do it, we win. Anyways, Phil, it's time for
the Daily Fail. Brought to you by Swan. Check them out, swanbitcoin.com. That's right. They've got automated Bitcoin savings plans, instant purchases. They're serving all kinds of clients. $10, $10 million. Swan's got your back. The link is down below. All right, guys. So look, we all know, we've harped on WTF happened in 1971, right? We know that Ben Prentice, heavily armed clown, they've got that awesome website that details all of the debasement and the ridiculous Federal Reserve Treasury shenanigans, all that stuff. This was something interesting that I wasn't aware of, so I got to give a shout out to the WTF_1971 account. And I think that they make an excellent point here. What the fuck happened to marriage? This is kind of weird because look at this. We were doing okay. We were doing okay. And then all of a sudden we get to 1970, 1971, and this thing turns into a freaking hockey stick. Is it possible that debasement all of a sudden made it so that people realized, like, I'm going to need more. I'm going to need more than just dollars to stick around. I don't know. Maybe people need to revisit true love. I'm not really sure. All I could say is marriage should not have been destroyed, okay, with the debasement of the dollar. So this is scary stuff. We can see that the ripple effects do not just affect money. They affect our livelihoods. They affect our relationships. Very scary stuff. Anyways, I'm afraid to see what that chart looks like in the future. Nico, you have any thoughts on this before we move into the deep?
Yeah, so, dude, I think that just looking at that data from a single point, you're just like, Nico, that's a coincidence, right? But if you go take a look at the website, what the fuck happened in 1971? That's a lot of coincidences, right? And they all started, like, listen, whether it's the salaries, right? The salaries haven't increased really since the 1970s, right? Whether it's the house ownership, whether it's all these things start going wrong. All these things, it's like the wealthier get wealthier, the poor get poor. Everything really started happening in 1971 since they started debasing the currency. Very strange. And some people would like to say, and I would like to make the argument too, the U.S. defaulted on its debt in 1971. And they were just like, you know what? Yeah, our dollar isn't backed by anything. It's fine. You guys could fuck off. And in the beginning, it worked out just fine. Look at the 1980s. But over time, right, it started breaking things. And you could even make the argument, right, that the moral decay of society that we're seeing today, right, we don't like to talk about social issues on the show, but hey, if you're not an ostrich with your head in the ground, you're starting to see some things that are very weird, right? That has happened before. Read the book When Money Dies, right? What was happening in Weimar Republic, right leading up to the hyperinflation, and read and look into what was happening at the end of the Roman Empire. Very, very similar things. And what happened at the end of the Roman Empire? They were debasing the currency. It might not be what the fiat that we have today, but the actual gold or silver percentages in coins in the denarii started to go down, right? So you could make the argument that, Phil, perhaps, right, that as more the money gets disconnected from reality, the more perhaps people on a subconscious level start to feel it, maybe start acting on it as well. Maybe I'm crazy. Anyways, Phil, what is the big kahuna?
All right, here we go. Let's dive into it. I gotta do some screen share here, so give me a sec. Still getting used to this. We changed our stream and just gotta get used to it here.
Yeah, let us know down in the comments what you think of the new software. We're still messing around with it. The green screen things, we're going to still try to get them to work. So bear with us. We will figure it out.
Oh, sorry, guys. New software, and we're getting used to it. Okay, so let's dive into some shitcoining. That's right. It is a brand new week. We need to spin up some new narratives because guess what? You can't just have this money disappear. So let's get started, and let's take a look here. We've got a tweet from Ryan Wyatt, who is Ryan Wyatt? All right, he's the CEO of Polygon Studios, Matic. Anyways, let's take a look, right? Because apparently, even though Terra Luna rug pulled and destroyed, a whole bunch of value, it looks like there's some projects on it that still need to be saved. Anyways, let's dive into this. Terra projects have begun migration. Over 48 projects and counting, including at One Planet NFT, an exclusive at 0x Polygon marketplace, and Derby Stars _HQ. It was so awesome to help and welcome all of these wonderful developers to our thriving ecosystem, of course. Right? It's fantastic. Stuff that doesn't need to be money, stuff that doesn't need to be an investment. Hey, don't worry about it. You were on a rug pull platform. It's all good. We're going to move you over to our platform. What could possibly go wrong? Anyways, let's dive a little deeper into this and see what they're saying. So, how Polygon is taking advantage of this latest exodus from Terra. All right, we're going to be putting capital and resources against these migrations to welcome the developers and their respective communities, right? Always the inclusion from the shitcoiners, right? Everybody's kumbaya. We're all working together. That's right. We're all working together, except none of us are actually working on Bitcoin. Anyways, we're opening our arms to all who want to come over. A lesson learned in the Terra collapse is that it's very wise to be on an EVM compatible chain. Really? So that you don't have to rebuild. So I just hope that whatever developers go, they go with EVM in mind for longevity. Okay, so listen, this whole EVM garbage, this is just Ethereum crap, okay? And we all see that Ethereum is broke AF, okay? It is just complete broken garbage. And I think that this is just absolutely, this is a ridiculous narrative to draw attention to this chain that nobody cares about. The other piece I want to point out to this is that coming from the corporate background, I can tell you that lessons learned bullshit, that is corporate speak. That is corporate speak for we screwed up because, we didn't pay much attention. So now we're going to use this term in order to validate that we've understood what the problem is, and we're going to fix these things going forward. But you need to ask yourself, is Polygon really safe? Is it really safe? It was on the rec leaderboard, number 2 on the rec leaderboard for $611 million for August of last year. And let's just take a quick look. Okay, we're going to take a quick look at this article here. Just to remind everyone, we may have some new viewers. Maybe they're not aware and they're thinking, oh, look at that. Look at this shitcoin. They're so welcoming. Hackers stole at least 600 million in poly exploit across 3 chains. That's right. So if you have one of these 48 projects that comes over, who's to say that project isn't going to get rug pulled? We have no idea. And you're only going to find out once the damage is done. Very, very dangerous. All right, so here we go. Just a quick recap here. Okay, so the hacker that pulled this exploit posted 3 bizarre messages through transaction records on Ethereum, according to the data from Etherscan. This is one of the messages. It would have been $1 billion hack if I had moved remaining shitcoins. That's right, the hacker called them shitcoins. Did I just save the project? Not so interested in money? Now considering returning some tokens or just leaving them there. Okay? Now, guys, I want you to think about this. I want you to think about this very carefully. Because again, this is part of the partnership parade that I always talk about with the shitcoins. It's meant for you to feel the warm and fuzzies. Okay? So you read this type of information and you say to yourself, it's okay. This is a supportive ecosystem and they're just going to move over to this more resilient platform. This is not the case. This is centralized garbage. Polygon is centralized garbage. The chains that are going onto Polygon are also centralized garbage, which can absolutely be rug pulled. And we showed you the second biggest rug pull in the history of rug pulls was on this chain that these projects are going to. Don't be fooled. This is crap. Nobody needs this. Okay? Stick to Bitcoin. This is all just a part of the partnership parade and nothing else. None of this needs to be money. None of this needs to be pretending that it needs to be money. If this technology actually had value, they would be able to go to VCs. They would be able to present the technology. They would be able to show how it offers value, how they are able to create a proper product or service, and how this product or service would be able to sustain itself. But it can't. Okay? So really what you're seeing, even though I know it looks all kumbaya, this is just cannibalizing. That's all it is. They're simply just taking the crap from these other projects, which already failed. We already covered the Luna Terra collapse multiple times. And they're trying to make it look like, hey, we've got this safe haven where we can create value for you. This is nonsense and it's bullshit. And you're going to see in 3 to 6 months, we're most likely going to be covering a rug pull from one of these 48 projects that no one ever heard of. Nico, I mean, I know that we covered Polygon so many times, but I just found this just so absolutely sickening because I remember when we had the bear market of 2018, 2019, and I remember seeing this same partnership parade from all these different shitcoins. And I remember because I was a shitcoiner too, and I had just gotten wrecked and I wanted to believe, so I would see the same type of messaging. And I was like, you know what? It's going to be okay because everybody's cooperating. And guess what? None of those projects ever came to be anything. The only project that I needed to pay attention to, which I ended up learning the hard way, was Bitcoin. Any thoughts on, it's just shitcoining like shitcoining, but...
Yeah, you absolutely, Phil bringing the hot fire, like always. Phil the shitcoin slayer, slaying the shitcoins. Dude, I you know what? In the beginning, when we used to cover these, I would always ask myself, like, hey, holy crap, maybe this is noise. But after time went by and we started getting comments like, dude, you saved me. I realized how important it was. And then it started to make sense why we're doing this on a Bitcoin show. One of the hardest things in Bitcoin, right, is convincing people why Bitcoin, why not shitcoins? Because the unit bias is so strong. And people get into like, oh, I'm only going to get 0.0001% of Bitcoin, or I can get, 500 Polygon, right? And they make this false thing, and this is not helped by the mainstream media also, the legacy media, better said, that, when you see CNBC, they'll put Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, XLM all in the same screen. And if you don't know anything about crypto, I hate using that word, then you're just like, oh, it's all the same. There's Bitcoin, and then there's crypto. There's Bitcoin, then there's shitcoins. There's Bitcoin, and there's altcoins. They're not equal. All these things, all these shitcoins, what a lot of people don't realize is that they've sacrificed decentralization for other features, whether that's faster transactions or whatever. So what is the revolution? Remember what we just showed you, the example of China, right? If you want to separate money from state and it's not decentralized, eventually, inevitably, it will be captured by government. The only thing that stands a chance is a truly decentralized cryptocurrency, and the only one that exists today is Bitcoin. If you look at Ethereum, we've gone over this many times, right? Not only does one of the board members sitting on the Ethereum Foundation, that makes no sense, right? She sits on the World Economic Forum, right? But not only that, 70% of Ethereum nodes run on Amazon Web Services. So when you're looking at Ethereum, what you should really be doing is thanking Jeff Bezos, because he's running most of their nodes. Or sorry, better said, it's 40% running on AWS, 70% are running on servers. So it could be Google, right? Still doesn't change it, right? If you look at XRP, right? Same thing. Most of the node equivalents are run by XRP, right? Not to mention the pre-mines by XRP and Ethereum, right? Solana, for example, got shut down, literally shut down 2 or 3 times this year, right? They froze the blockchain. They actually were going to vote to redistribute wealth, to make sure that the very wealthy guy in Solana didn't dump on everybody else. So they're not decentralized. And if you want to take the next step in human evolution, the next step in human history, you got to separate money from state. Just like church and state were separated 200 years ago, right? Same concept, right? It's reached its pinnacle. It's reached its utility. Book The Sovereign Individual touches upon this, right? We got to move on. As individuals, as humanity, as a species, we got to utilize the power of the internet, and we got to use Bitcoin and able to take advantage of that future, or else the same things are going to keep happening, which is the same things that happened in the legacy system are now happening in the shitcoin system. The bank runs, rug pulls, the theft, the fraud, the same shit on a conceptual basis is happening in shitcoin land. That happened in fiat land, right? That fiat patched over with regulations, right, to stop those fraud. Now, Bitcoin, right, if you take self-custody of your Bitcoin, what is the disadvantage of that? The disadvantage of that is the $5 wrench attack. If someone physically attacks you because they know that you have self-custody of your Bitcoin, that's a big type of attack. There's no perfect solution. There's mitigations, geographically separating your multi-sigs, right? Your signatures, right? That's a good solution, right? Having a dead man switch, right? There's things that you're going to have to think about, and this all goes back to Bitcoin. The Bitcoin revolution only works if people start taking personal responsibility, because before they were outsourcing that personal responsibility and the storage of their wealth to these powerful institutions that keep breaching that trust. And it just happened with China, right? And it's going to keep happening because on a conceptual level, it's a bad architected system that you could have made an argument that was necessary. Now with Bitcoin, it's redundant. It's I don't know what the word I'm looking for, Phil. It is obsolete.
Obsolete. Yeah, I was gonna say it's obsolete.
Boom. But anyways, Phil, time for
the Daily Meme Review.
Brought to you by Citadel 21. It's the best Bitcoin cultural zine, stories, articles, comics by actual Bitcoiners. This is the artwork for Volume 11. This is the artwork for Volume 2. And this is the artwork for Volume 11. Volume 12, 13. Yeah, volume 12 just came out. I'll show it to you guys when I get back to Miami. They're scarce. There's only 1,000 physical copies per volume, so make sure to get your prints of Citadel 21 today. All right, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Meme Review, where we review Bitcoin memes. Memes not only play an essential role in Bitcoin culture, they play a pivotal role in this narrative trench warfare that we're fighting every single day against governments and central banks. Anyways, moving on to the first one. Speaking of government memes, the public economic collapse. It's their crayons they're coloring on the wall. He did it. Free market. It's so true.
It's so true.
Wow.
Right?
It's so true. Dude, and it reminds me of one of the things that we're seeing in the younger generation, specifically in the United States, is that they're calling for more collectivist ideology, right? And failed economic models, right? Because they've been so disillusioned with capitalism. But in reality, it's like, it's crony capitalism, and the capitalism hasn't been able to, the free market hasn't been able to function because the government intervenes. And then another misconception is that, dude, the US economy is not a free market economy. It's a central, dude, it can't be that the Fed has a switch to dump the stock market, and then when they print money, the stock market grows. That sounds centrally planned to me. It might be not 100% centrally planned, but that sounds like it sounds like a command and control economy. It doesn't sound like a free market. In a free market, that shouldn't be allowed, right? It's like Solana saying, oh, Solana's decentralized, and then them being shut off, right? It's so stupid. Anyways, moving on. Sorry, I get carried away. Next one by Greg Zeg. This is his second account. Greg Zagdo. Stay humble, stack sats, just stick to the plan. This is the famous bell curve. He's the very dumb guy, like me and Phil, the 55 IQ, stick to the plan. And then in the middle of the curve, right, is the 100 IQ people. No, you can't just stick to the plan and achieve all your goals. And then the very smart people, 145, stick to the plan. And then a pleb did a new one. The very dumb people, stay humble, stack sats, stick to the plan. The 100 IQ people, my star will continue to rise. It's Nick Carter, and they put Nick Carter's hair on there. And then the 145, stay humble, stack sat. That is a great meme. All right, moving on. The lizard people. Shout out Marty Bent. I'm going to give it a like. We debased their currency and destroyed the nuclear family and told them the patriarchy and climate change are the problem. It's so true, man. Connect this with what happened in 1971, that data point that Phil showed you in the fail. The media, when Biden sends millions of barrels of oil to China amid an oil crisis, the media, when you donate $25 to some truck, it's so true. Guys, we don't like to take a political stance, but I'm going to say it, Phil. I can't contain myself, okay? Hunter Biden pictures, and it's literally no media is talking about it. Like, come on, these elites have different rules. It has nothing to do with left or right. Like, hey, I think it has to do with establishment versus everybody else. Like, it's such BS. Anyways, next one by Battle Ant. Blockchain without Bitcoin. It's the car and the... All right, last one by Brecky. Bitcoiners bouncing back from the FUD. I'm not going to play the audio, but it's a chick doing crazy stunts, jumping off a balcony and a ledge. Yeah, it's true. It's true. Bitcoiners don't care about the FUD. If you still care about the FUD, you have not graduated yet. Anyways, for those memes, I'm going to give it a lens cap. What about you, Phil? Yo.
Hey, sorry, dude. The power just fucking switched off.
All good.
Sorry.
I just rated the meme. What would you give those memes, Phil?
Well, you know what? Lucky for me, I did see them before, so I am going to give them these very helpful and awesome Burton earplugs. Ooh, fancy.
Very, very fancy. Very fancy for some awesome memes. Anyways, guys, we want to know if you agree with our scores or you disagree. Why don't you rate the meme yourself down in the comment section, and it helps us with the algorithm. So Pleb always puts that. I think it's funny. And, of course, make sure to subscribe to us on alternative video platforms like rumble.com, a personal favorite, bitcointv.com. Join our Telegram group. Do it right now. It's a party in there, and you could link us some awesome memes to review on the Bitcoin Meme Review. And yeah, if you're tuned into the audio version on Twitter Spaces, make sure to stay until after the show, where Jacob from Swan and our own Optimus Fields is going to do a live Q&A and hangout. It's going to be awesome. But anyways, Phil, it's time for the daily... No, there was an open source software release today. Why don't you tell everybody about it?
Plebsites.
Brought to you by CipherSafe. Check them out. CipherSafe.io. Paper's dead. It's not the right way to store your seed. Store your seed in the all-new Cypher Grid or the Cypher Wheel. They both come with a tamper-resistant wire, and the grid also comes with a punch tool.
All right, guys, we have got a great website by Plebs, and this was shared with us with fellow Bitcoiner. It was Chris Alemo that shared this with us, right? And let's go take a look. Here we go, guys. This is the best version of Real Vision. So for the people who don't know Real Vision, right? We're talking about Raoul Pal and all of these shillers of wares that people don't need. So I don't know who made this website, but it is absolutely fantastic. NewRealVision.com. The link is going to be down in the show notes. Here we go. Real Vision. Buy Bitcoin first, then review this simple diversification strategy. Here we go. Also Bitcoin, but in black, 2%. Also Bitcoin, but in blue, 2%. Also Bitcoin, but in pink, 2%. Also Bitcoin, but in yellow, 3%. Also Bitcoin, but in green, 6%. In cyan, 11%. In purple, 14%. So as you can see, it's all just Bitcoin. And, all joking aside, that really is our diversification strategy because there really is only Bitcoin and shitcoins. And shitcoins are not Bitcoin. That's why they're shitcoins. Anyways, we digress. And now we are going to go... Where are we going, Nico? Oh, we're going to tell everybody about the audio-only platforms that we have. Okay. So don't forget to check us out on our audio-only platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. If you want to stream us sats, check us out on fountain.fm. You can stream us sats through Breeze.
Awesome. Thank you, Phil. All right, guys, before we go, I want to give a very quick shout out to our awesome clothing sponsor, representltd.com. Phil and I wear the merch every single day. Look at that. Decentralized. I'm wearing the decentralized hoodie. We didn't plan this. He's making Bitcoin merch. He's making Simply Bitcoin merch as well. You could take advantage of the promo code down below to get 10% off representltd.com. Of course, check out our newsletter, Simply Bitcoin, www.simplybitcoin.news. The legendary pirate Beach Bum is taking care of it. We just dropped a killer blog post or article recently. It's called Stock to Flow is Officially Dead. Definitely going to want to check it out. Guys, that was our show. If you enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Smack that like button. Of course, you want to continue hearing the Bitcoin news from the pleb perspective. Definitely consider subscribing to Simply Bitcoin. The memes, the fails, it's all included. Yeah. See you tomorrow, guys, for a brand new episode.
Broken system, broken incentives. Bitcoin fixes this. It's our solution now.